I was blown away. What could I say? It all seemed to make sense. You're taking away everything, and I can't deal with that. I try to see the good in life, but good things in life are hard to find.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome. It has been about 3 months or so since I've last done a video, which was actually in May, I believe. It is now September 1st. Little introduction of myself. My name is Dan. I live in New Jersey. You probably have seen my videos with my case about what's been going on. If you haven't, what I'm going to do here is I just gave you an introduction for myself. The other thing that I will do is I will go over my images first. I'll give you my symptoms. I'll go over my images as well as tell you what 5 surgeons, or basically 6 opinions. I say 6 opinions because there's a non-surgical opinion as well. Have given me. So before we start, what I'd like to see, if at all possible, if you are a spine surgeon, if you are an orthopedic surgeon, if you are a neurosurgeon, if you are a nucca chiropractor, or if you are a regular chiropractor, please comment on my video based upon your findings, what you've seen, what I'm going to share on my images. I'd like to hear from you because it just might mean that I might be able to push myself to go see you. Really, though, what I am looking for is a surgeon that is going to basically revise what is a failed. I'm going to see if I can do it up here. That's right there. Hopefully, a failed Mobi-C. That is what they're considering now, a failed Mobi-C. I'll get into that a little bit, but what I want that revision, you can see, I have a fusion here, and it actually didn't fuse over here, believe it or not. So this is over 2 years. Now I don't think this is bothering me because I have the hardware here, but this is bothering me, and I suspect what's probably needed to get done at this point is, and a couple of surgeons have agreed to it, is that this Mobi-C needs to come out and it needs to be revised with a different artificial disc, like a Pro disc. That is what they've been talking. So if you are a surgeon in New Jersey that actually would do something like that, and you have experience doing something like that, please leave a comment in there so I can at least reach out to you. This way I know what your practice is, and I'll consider it at that point. Now I'm saying in New Jersey because I live around the Princeton, Somerville, Somerset area, around that area, Bridgewater. So I'm in Hillsborough, New Jersey. I will just say flat out, I am in Hillsborough, New Jersey. So around that area would what I'd prefer. An hour or less would be ideal. Now, that being said, what are my symptoms? So I'm going to talk about the common symptoms. One of the symptoms that actually has started within these past 3 months has been when I've been walking. I've typically been able to walk almost like an hour a day or so, without any problems. Usually that's usually like a mile, or two. It has been no non-problematic, for me for the most part until these past couple months. What's been happening is that, suddenly, after I'm walking just a little bit over a mile, and it's usually the long walk that does it, my I'll start getting numbness and tingling here in my hands here. It'll come into here, it'll actually come into here too. I mean, it'll come right into my hands. This is actually just started now. It hasn't been like this before until recently. So that is one of the common symptoms that I'm having now. Naturally, no one knows. I'll tell you what some of the doctors said later on, what they think with that. But that is a common symptom. Now, the good news is the Mobi-C, my neck pain at the worst has been the 4. When it used to be like an excruciating like 9. And excruciating was me pushing through it. But for somebody else, that would be like a 9 or an 11 out of 10. But I would push through it. So the neck pain has actually resolved for the most part. So that's the good news. The bad news is that I still hear tons of crunching and grinding right up here, crunching and grinding that have been occurring on my neck or in my neck. Tons of crunching and grinding. Um, it doesn't sound right. My neck doesn't feel stable. I feel very, very unstable too. Like I actually, there are days where I feel like my neck is just pushed forward and collapse to the right. Like that's how I feel. And you'll see on the images why I feel that way. There's that. On top of that, it's made life very difficult for me. In particular, the main big thing I've had weakness on the right side too. So just so you are aware, I've had weakness on the right side. Now I've had full body weakness before my fusion surgery, myelopathy, cervical myelopathy. My left side feels perfectly fine. It feels so strong, like extremely, extremely strong. And now my right side, I have weakness. I've talked about this before in previous videos. If I go like this, like just up here, boom, strength just returns all the way down. So that's telling me there's something wrong right about here-ish. That's what it feels like. That's what it sounds like. I mean, I can hear the crunching and grinding right now. I mean, it sounds like it's like a loose part in there. That's what it sounds like almost. Sometimes I wonder, is that the Mobi-C? Is that my vertebrae? What is it? What really is it? Is it C3-4? Is it C2-3? I don't know. Okay, that being said, let me give you guys a little bit of a history based upon what we're going to get. I'm trying to share a screen. I'm going to share just one screen here. It's going to come out. Okay, cool. All right, so as you'll see, this is my stuff from 2014. What you can see here is, you have kind of moderate stenosis at 6'7". You kind of have a moderate stenosis at 5'6". Nothing really at 4'5". It looks okay. 3'4" will actually look kind of bad at the time, but they didn't list it as moderate. So that was 2014. I did push on a lot, and I mean a lot at the time. Now my concern is, you can see, I think that's a bone spur. I'm not sure, but look at two. If that's a bone spur at C2, first of all, that looks too interior, and it looks like something. This disc is being pushed forward almost. But if that's a bone spur, if that's truly a bone spur at C2, shouldn't that be addressed? Shouldn't that be there? Like, shouldn't they address that bone spur so the C2? I'm starting to wonder now. Is this bone spur causing me problems here? And I'm starting to wonder, what happens now? Can they clean out bone spurs without doing any other sort of surgery? Because the disc looks fine. That was 2014. Now I'm going to move on. January 2020. I was doing chiropractic work from like December to basically March, December 2019 to like March of 2020. You can see the collapsed discs on here. 5, 6, 6, 7. Weren't in that great shape. 2, 3 was okay, but still a little bit forward. 3, 4 was very narrow, as you can see. 4, 5 looked okay. But then this is a concern because you have this, and look at my head. My head's like this. And why does my head look like that? Like, why does it look like it's crooked? I look at other x-rays and they're perfectly straight. This looks crooked like this now. And that really bothers me because I'm starting to think that, oh, well, maybe I have a C1 that's twisted or rotated or something. Talk about that in a little bit too. Okay, so after a couple months chiropractic work, it wasn't working. Here's your flexion and extension. So it wasn't, it kept going on here. Your flexion and extension. This looks okay. I didn't really have any problems looking up or down, but you can kind of see the extension was pretty bad. At the levels that I got done. We decided to go ahead and proceed with some surgery. As you can see, that moderate stenosis, this is 2020, by the way. So we're talking about 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 6 years later, just pushed on with a lot of different things that I shouldn't have pushed on with. I'm assuming that these are all bone spurs. And if that's the case, that needs to, that I'm hoping that got addressed, but I don't know. I'll see in a minute. But you can see, you know, the 5-6 and the 6-7 have a very, 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 very bad. I would consider this severe stenosis, and that was causing cervical myelopathy. Got into urgent surgery for that. You can see the 3-4 is pretty bad. 4-5 deceptively good, but still not that great. C2, C2 3. Is that C2 3? No, that's 3-4. That's C2 3 right there. And it looks okay. But yeah, I mean, but again, look at that. Is that if that's a bone spur, then why was that not cleaned out? Like is that a bone spur or is that something else? What is that? Nobody knows. So I moved on. I got the surgery done. Here is the 6-week post-op image that I had from my ACDF surgery. That looks pretty good. Hardware looks stable. That looks good, right? Actually, I think this was was it 6 week or two? No, that was 6 week. And then, the next time I had an image done, I think was almost at like the 6 month mark. And I'm going to show you a huge difference now. Now you can see this like this, and you can see I still have some neck curve going on here. I'm going to show you the next image. My neck curve disappeared, completely disappeared. Look at that. That is just a standing lateral image where I had a neck curve that completely disappeared on me. Unfortunately, it's like everything just collapsed on me. Like 4-5, okay, maybe it could, but that just looks like it went from being like that to being like that and almost going the other way. I did bring it up to a surgeon. Surgeon said no, it just could be the positioning of the image. That was what was told to me. Maybe I'm just looking at the 6-7 meters. Like, yeah, could be, maybe. Because I'm looking at that's a 6 centimeter, right? And then I'm looking at 6 centimeter there, and that's a little different. It could also be different imaging that's being used by whoever, but that's what he kind of came back at. He said that's really the positioning of the image. Now this is more horrible. Still was having problems though, and the problems were coming about when I can't even sit in a car right now, because my head just feels like it's just gonna wobble right off. Like that's it. Like I feel like it's forward, it's collapsed. I can't sit in the car. I can't sit I can sit in here, thankfully. I got used to it after so long. Sitting in a barber chair has been almost impossible because I can't keep my head up, and especially when I start moving it, it's too much. But the problem was before we get into that, I was having tons of problems at C3-4. I was having lots of pain on top of things, and I felt the crunching and grinding. Now, I will admit that the fusion surgery, if you look at this almost looks like it fused completely, right? Because if you look at that C6 month mark, and then that's the 6 week mark, and almost looks like it was fused completely at that point. Deceiving. Now we come back and here is my December 2020 MRI. You can see this is not the best MRI, but it's pretty good still. You can kind of see the spinal cord definitely was decompressed at this point from, and this is, like I said, this is deceiving. It doesn't look like it's completely decompressed, but it is decompressed. C5 to C7 completely decompressed. C4-5 has a little bit of something going on there, but C3-4 was still going. I had other images too that were even worse than this. Oh, actually, the C5-7 looked better, but the C3-4 looked worse. And the C3-4 was actually like I was feeling pain. Of course, the natural reaction is, what is this? What is this? Nobody can understand in that what's square in the red. Nobody can explain to me what's square in the red, and nobody can explain to me what's squared circle. Now, from my understanding, squared circle is a sign of like I don't want to say osteoporosis, but it's kind of like what is it really? Maybe sign of arthritis of some sort, right? I guess maybe it kind of gets there. But that C2-3, no one can explain to me what it is. And I have a feeling that this is causing me a problem, and I don't know what to do there. I haven't brought it up to any surgeon, but every time I ask the surgeon, what is C2-3? What do you see there? They don't say anything. Now, naturally, I decided to go ahead and have a Mobi-C place. Look at that placement. Now, this placement is actually really good compared to a lot of images. This actually is almost a perfect placement. What I've been told is that that could probably go back maybe one millimeter might have made a big little bit of a difference. But you can see the fusion. It almost looks like everything almost looked like a fuse. I mean, this was what June 2020. Um, okay, cool, great. That looked like a great. I mean, the disc height that they got off of this was so tremendous. I couldn't even believe, like they couldn't even believe it. Actually, I think this was actually I don't even think this was the best image. I think there was another image that showed it like really, really good. But they were very surprised at how much disc height they got. And then you look at that, that was at the 2 week mark too. No, 2 week or 6 week. I think that was 2 week mark. They took the image and it doesn't look horrible. It looks okay. They said that's pretty normal. Still, my head over there, if you look at my head, it still looks crooked. And that's still a concern to me about why is it crooked? What is there something that's not clicked into place? That's actually because you look at that and it doesn't look right. Then we go to essentially what's going to be okay. That was 2 week. This is 6 week now. Now you can see here on the 6 week mark. Again, this looks like, well, what happened? Did the Mobi-C collapse or something? It doesn't look like, and they're like, well, no, it's just the image on the X-ray. It was a bad image. We probably shouldn't, they didn't opt to retake it. That was what was told to me, but it looked like it collapsed. But the placement of the end plates looked great. They still look great. They still look perfectly fine. So they didn't know, they didn't really have any answer for me on that one. I was still dealing with stuff. At that point, I asked them to go to PT. I also asked them, this was 6 week mark, that PT, and then you can see the fusion again. And they said, oh yeah, you're fused. This was the second surgeon that came. I have not been back to them yet, and I'm debating whether or not I should. And then, he came back on there and he said, but the Mobi-C looks great. It looks like the end plates are in place and, you look like to be doing fine. And you can see the neck curve kind of restored itself. I want to go back a little bit more. Did it really restore itself? See, it went up and it tried to restore itself. And then it's not horrendously bad, but then it kind of falls forward again. Now, here's where the trick's going to be. You're going to see the major difference. So, this looks okay, though my head still looks a little crooked. It still looks a little crooked. But this looks okay to me, though it looks like it collapsed a little bit more compared to what it is. And now I started getting a little concerned because I'm seeing the fusion and I'm like, well, this looks like a fuse here, but did it really fuse? Because now I couldn't tell. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem like a fuse, and could that be a problem? Okay, so now here is a 3 month mark after PT and dental drilling in my jaw. Look at that. Look how horrible that looks. My Mobi-C is like this. That is a completely failed Mobi-C. And I say it, and the Center for Artificial Discs also says it. Now, let me grab a drink of water before I continue on. I have no throat problems, by the way, just a tickle in my throat. But for those that are wondering, I have no throat problems. So that is a completely failed Mobi-C. And look what it did. So it went down, and then the top of my neck just basically went like this because of the whole thing. And when it should be straight. So that's bad. That's really bad. I was livid when I saw this. And then I said, well, let's look at the regular standing. That didn't look good either. The end plates are still fine. That's the best thing. The end plates are still fine. But what is actually occurring, and I'm going to tell you what's actually occurring here, the core had migrated to one side. So, whether it was a pushing down from the drilling, maybe, so soon, I think it was maybe like 2 months after my Mobi-C, might have pushed the core to the left, or whether it's something else, I don't know. I've been pretty careful with things. Of course, this looks like it fused here, but it's deceiving. And then the Mobi-C here has been, that doesn't look good. So, then we did the extension. Extension looks pretty good. And then you look at the flexion and wow, look at that overhang on there. at that C3 level. If you see that overhang, that C3 is way overhanging over that C4. It should not be like that. That is too much. And they're coming back and they're saying that, yeah, that's overhang and your top end plate could have been moved back just a little bit, to really resolve that. But the question is, could it have been because maybe there was no room to do it? So I went back. I pushed on. I extremely pushed on so much, and then probably about at the what is this, February of 2022? This image, different facility, my regular radiology facility, but you can still see the Mobi-C is like this. And this isn't a clear-cut image because they don't know what they're looking at. They're not as clear as the doctor's office was, but this is a clear-cut problem. And again, here's the other Mobi-C again, hanging down a little bit, right? And you can see it. And then here's your extension, and you can see the extension like this, right? For those wondering about my range of motion, okay, I'm going to show you because that was the one thing that doctors have said to me. Up, down, left, right. More pain when I turn to the right, especially over here. But the range of motion is perfectly fine. 2-level fusion and a Mobi-C. As a matter of fact, I think is ranging too much motion, and that's actually a problem. So we'll get into that though a little bit more. So we come back, and then that is, well, okay. So that's extension, that's flexion, as you see. There's the overhang again, and that is a concern. Okay, and then there's your C1, C2, and to me, this doesn't look right. This doesn't look like it's now it could be positioning, very much could be positioning, but it looks like something is twisted. It looks like my skull is just twisted one way and it needs to be twisted another way. Okay, so April 2022, I decided to go CAT scan because I thought that was very, very important to me. How is the CAT scan looking like? If you really look, C5. Well, this was not that clear, but C5-6 is pretty much almost done fusing, if not fused completely. C6-7, however, doesn't show any signs of fusion at all on here. So this is a problem to me. And then if you look at C3-4, which is where the Mobi-C is, look how that C3 is just forward. It's almost as if like it's almost like the core of that disc just went forward, and that's it. Now the good news is it's not pressing against any vocal cords or any throat problems or anything like that. But that's what it almost seems like. It almost seems like it would have been back, but then somehow it got pushed forward, and that is a problem. And now the question remains: is that could this have been, at the time of surgery, could this have been lined up over there, or could this have been pushed back at all on my C3-4? So that is a major problem. Now I'm not really curious about the bones. I don't know anything about bone spurs on here. I don't know what they would look like. But here is a clear-cut indication of the failed fusion at C6-7. As you can see, C5-6 pretty much has a fusion where I expect it. This is that top image has the best thing that we can see on there, and the bottom image really doesn't have anything. They did get a 3D model of my CAT scan. Okay, this is concerning to me because I believe it says, what does that say? Spin 0, tilt 90. So I think this is from the top of the spine. If I'm correct, if I'm from the top of your cervical spine, and look at that tilt is like that. That's concerning to me. Like, is that a twisted C1? Is that a C2 problem? What is causing that problem? That should be lined up evenly with that line going across, and it's not. Okay, but we moved on. Here's the back, the posterior. Looks okay, but you can see on here. Here's your C3-4, 4-5. I believe. Well, I don't know if this is C3-4. I'm not sure 100% now. That might be 2-3, but you can see, there's evidence of non-fusion there as well. You kind of can't see it on this end. I just want to see. You can't see much on this end, but this is pretty much the one view. Looks good. Um, but again, I'm concerned about that Mobi-C because that's got overhang on there. The Fusion looks okay though. The hardware looks stable. And then of course there's that. So, and I believe that's it for my images. So I will stop share and I will continue on to talk about these things. This is the most concerning, the Mobi-C, as well as maybe potential bone spurs at C23. That's also concerning to me. Now, about the opinions that I've had. I had an opinion from a doctor that I befriended on Reddit of all things, and he came back to me and he said, "Well, he goes, if I'm looking at this, your fusion looks fine, your hardware's stable. I wouldn't do anything with that." He goes, but your Mobi-C is a little questionable. I probably, if I was doing a surgery, I might have knocked it back maybe like 1 millimeter. Would have made a big difference. He goes, but this is a tough case because fusing 4-5 makes no sense to get to 3-4 because we would just be removing a potential good disc to get to a bad disc. And he wasn't sure about that. I think I talked about this in the last video, and he came back and he says, here would what my options would be. Potentially go in there, replace that with a fusion, but without a plate, just a cage, and and that's it, and a bone in between there. And this way, I wouldn't lose really good range of motion, and I wouldn't have too many problems, if any at all. He said, but what I would be more inclined to say is that, yeah, we can. For some reason, this water is just killing me. Like well, not killing me, but the water is just like I need it in my throat now for some reason. I don't know why. Give me a minute. But there's uh, the he said I'd be more inclined to replace that Mobi-C and see if a Pro Disc would work for you. He said the other option that we could give you is, do nothing and wait it out to next year and see if you feel any better, or take a posterior approach. And a posterior approach would be from C3 to C7. So that is the first surgeon I saw. Now, naturally, I got concerned because I'm like, well, is this really a Mobi-C problem? Because I'm not having pain more than I'm having, hypermobility and instability. And first question he asked, he goes, when you're having that feeling, does it feel like you're getting an impending sense of doom? And like everything's just gonna, just you're not going, like basically like your entire body's just not working, and something's going to go wrong, and does it feel like something? And I'm like, yeah. I'm going to give you a perfect example. So I bought out well, I had a lease on a vehicle and decided to change my lease to a car loan with the bank because I don't want to lease the vehicle anymore. I wanted to eventually purchase it, and in order for me to purchase it in the state of New Jersey, we have to go to the DMV to get a title transfer done. Seems simple enough, right? Except for the fact that the DMV is probably how many miles? 7 miles away, if that, at the most. Now, for me, I'm having a hard time just driving 2 miles down the road because when I do that, I feel like I don't have any stability on this side. I feel like that whatever's happening here, it's not stable. So I've had to cancel a couple appointments because I started driving and I couldn't make it. Ended up doing it in July, sitting in a car. Decided to get a ride, put a neck brace on. I don't know if I have it. Yes, I do. Hold on. Put a neck brace on. So here you go. This is a neck brace. It's a little different neck brace though. It's one that if I wanted to, I can turn this up or down if I want to. Kind of decompresses things a little bit if you need to. Don't do that though. Please don't do that at home. Talk to your surgeon about that if you want to try that. But decided to get a ride early in the morning. I said, let me do that. And of course, natural reaction was, well, I got the ride. Here I am. And I got in the car. As soon as I got in the car, I felt like it was an SUV. I felt like that I felt like just like I had no stability at all. And so we did, but I decided, let's keep going. Let's move. Ended up having to stop within 5 miles just to get out of the car and literally pull my neck up because I didn't feel like it was stable. I felt like it was getting like just crunched and loose and everything. Like, and it's not muscle, believe me. Definitely not muscle. Um, and it's all on this side too, which is ironically enough, you look at the Mobi-C, what's it doing? It's going that way. So I feel like that I don't have stability on one side, but I have it on the other. Um, so it's throwing me way off. So and then of course on the way back, I basically got that same feeling on the way back. The only problem was like I legit got thrown into a panic attack because I thought my neck was actually going to break. Like that's how bad it was. Like I was screaming for my driver, the person who was taking me at the time to pull over. And they were not pulling it, and I was screaming. I'm like, "You have no idea what's happening right now. Like my neck feels like it's gonna break." And literally that's how I felt. I felt like my neck was going to break on me. Like that's how it felt. Very, very bad feeling to have. Now, so okay, so we're gonna move on because that was kind of that's where you talk about the impending sense of doom, and that's why I'm feeling that way. That being said, um, we do come back to this and we say, well, what do we do? Um, can we can we do anything for you? And he says, I'm going to send you to somebody at Texas Back Institute, which I talked about last time. I got the opinion from Texas Back Institute. They came back. I will tell you what that opinion was. That opinion was that yes, your Mobi-C failed. Your Mobi-C is causing you hypermobility. Your Mobi-C is causing you cervical instability. Um, your Mobi-C needs to be replaced. We'd be inclined to replace it with a Pro Disc or potentially a Simplify, depending on what happens during the surgery. Um, Granted, I'd love to go to Texas. I would honestly love to go to Texas, but it's become a very challenging situation for me because I can't even make it 5 miles down the road. How the heck am I going to make it all the way to Texas? Um, how am I going to even make it to an airport? Sure, if I find somebody local, I could probably suck it up and go through it. But going anywhere else is going to be very extremely painful and difficult. And the pain does come when that does happen. So I got that opinion, but I also decided to go to a nucca chiropractor and somebody else. So I started researching the pro disc stuff, and I came back and I went to nucca chiropractor, and unfortunately, the nucca chiropractor says just came back to me, and I asked her, well, what do you see? I didn't go to their office. I go, well, what do you see, and do you think you can help? And the answer was, yeah, I think we can help. What we would do is we would do our own imaging, get some measurements, and then come up with a treatment plan for you. Would be out of pocket for yourself, and probably upwards up to $3,000. Uh, and then they came back and they said, but we think we can help you at that point. It would probably be about a 3-month treatment, but they didn't tell me what they saw on the image. And I came back at that and I said, typical chiropractor response. 2 to 3 times a week for 3 months. I'm like, or maybe 1 to 2 times a week, for 3 months. I got typical chiropractor response. I was disappointed because I was thinking nuclear chiropractor because of my C1 and how my head looked rotated and everything like that, and I wasn't sure. But they didn't even say they looked at my images and they didn't even say anything about it. And I'm just like, you just told me what you're going to do, but you didn't tell me what you saw. And I really needed to know what you see, and it didn't do that. So I moved on. I started researching, surgeons that do pro disc in here. Very difficult to find surgeons that do pro disc here. Everything surgeon that I've looked at almost says Mobi-C, 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 Mobi-C. I don't want Mobi-C because I have a failed one. I don't need a failed Mobi-C. So I found one that, ironically, it was a guy that I got an opinion from back in 2020 when I did the fusion surgery. And he came back, and by the way, there's a little gnat here that keeps coming in front of my face for some reason, and I have no idea where it came from. So that's why I was just blowing like that. But he came back. I called his office, and I spent almost an entire week going back and forward with his coordinator or whoever she was about my insurance. And I'm like, look, I just want to see this surgeon. And she came back. She's like, well, I'm going to show him your images. I'm going to and let's see what he says. And then she called me back. She says, well, yeah, he sees the problem. He says it's pretty complicated. But unfortunately, because of your insurance, we really don't can't we really can't do anything. And she goes, it's unfortunate you have the insurance that you do because you're getting denied the treatment that you don't. I'm like, well, first of all, my insurance isn't denying any treatment. You're denying the treatment. And and the thing is, I told her she wanted me to come down. I said, look, I need a virtual consultation or something because sitting in the car has been impossible. And she goes, well, if that was me, if I can't sit in the car, I'd go right to the ER. And I'm like, what's the ER gonna do? Send me away with pain pills? I'm like, that's not what I need right now. Okay. Moving on from there, I had another consultation in New Jersey, probably about 2 hours away. I didn't go, but it was a virtual consultation. Give me a minute, more water. And that was us. So that's really the nucca chiropractor, two surgeons. We're now talking about a fourth surgeon. Okay, hold on. Nucca chiropractor, right? So we got the nucca chiropractor. We got the surgeon from Reddit. We got the surgeon from Texas. We got the neurosurgeon that I spoke to that turned me away from my insurance and told me to go to ER basically. Now this is the fifth one that I'm going to talk about. This surgeon was in New Jersey, South Jersey, pretty far away from me, about 2 hours. Their whole mindset was, well, you could probably get to us within an hour. Shouldn't be a problem. Explained to them I'm having a hard time driving. I had a very hard time getting a virtual consultation. They came back to me. He had a valid point. It was actually a surgeon from a friend of mine that really, came back and said, well, this is the best surgeon that I know, and this friend does billing for all these surgeons. So she said this is basically a world-class surgeon. Now I don't know about that, but okay. But came back and the surgeon showed up about 45 minutes late to the virtual consultation. Not a big deal. I almost left it, but I want to see it and what he had to say. I asked him about the fusion. He's the one that actually pointed out the failed fusion to me. He said actually you didn't fuse at one level. He goes, so that's problem number one. He goes, and the other problem is that your Mobi-C looks like it's causing some problems. Definitely looks like you had when he started looking at images, he said the same things I did. Hypermobility, you're having a little bit more overhang on your Mobi-C. That could be causing you a problem. He goes, I'd be more inclined to fix it all. He goes, I'd be more inclined to fix the fusion. And I'm like, well, I don't think the fusion's having a problem with me. I go, that's they guaranteed me 50%, and I got 50%, if not more, from that. My problem is, the Mobi-C, they guarantee me 80%, and I got maybe at most 5. Maybe because of the pain, maybe I'll say 10. But overall, if I'm going to say overall better, 80%, no. Probably maybe, I'm at 55%, functionality right now. So in the Mobi-C really didn't do much other than reduce a lot of pain. So he came back and he says, well, I go, so what would you do? I go, would you be inclined to replace the Mobi-C with another artificial disc? I go, what do you think about that? And he says, no. He goes, I wouldn't do that. He goes, I wouldn't do anything but a posterior approach on you. But before we do that, and I heard posterior approach, and I'm like, well, why? I'm like, why would you go posterior approach? He goes, well, if you get another artificial disc in there and it fails, you're just going to be in there for another surgery. So why bother doing that as opposed to just fixing it completely and not having to worry about it ever again? He has a point. He does have a point. What if? So I agreed with him on that, but then I asked him, I go, okay, well, what are the steps I need to take? What do I need to do here? He says, well, first thing you're going to need to do, get a new MRI, get an EMG, go through the steroid shots and the other whatever other shots they put in there, just to see if we can pinpoint where the pain is. And I explained to him, I go, it's not really. I'm like, it's not the pain. I go, the pain isn't a problem to me. I go, it's the hypermobility, it's the instability. I go, that is a problem. He goes, yeah, but we'd have to go through it. And he goes, probably taking, go through PT. I'm like, so you're talking about 6 months? And he's like, yeah. I was like, well, I'm like, all right, well, I was a little annoyed about that because I just felt like he was taking steps just to cover his insurance stuff. I was also wasn't too thrilled about the posterior approach. I get it. I really do. But if you're going to do that, then look, it better be a clear-cut case of taking a posterior approach, a clear-cut case. Basically, he just wanted to put spacers. He goes, now the question is, I don't know whether we do posterior approach and put the spacer in 6, 7, or if we do it at 3, 4. And I go, so what would you do? You remove the Mobi-C, you would remove the Mobi-C and put a spacer there? And he came back and he said, no, actually, I keep the Mobi-C in place, put the spacer in. And I'm like, but the Mobi-C is causing me problems. I go, why? So I just felt like that he wouldn't do that. I saw my initial neurosurgeon as well that did this fusion. Now I didn't talk to him about the failed fusion. But here's what he said to me about the Mobi-C. He goes, honestly, he goes, I'm not too versed in them. I've only ever done one revision on the Mobi-C ever. He goes, if this were a case of your 4-5 being really bad, this would be a no-brainer of a 4-level fusion, but you don't have that case. He came back to me and he said, I honestly wouldn't do anything. He goes, that's what I would do. He goes, I honestly wouldn't do anything. Now, this is before I knew about the failed fusion. And then, only problem that I had with talking to him, I had a great conversation with him. He did tell me he's emotionally invested in my case. But the only problem I had with the conversation with him was that he came back and said, that he wouldn't do anything. And I was like, well, I go, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's necessarily the fix here. I go, how is not doing anything going to fix anything? And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and he goes, honestly, if you come back to me, I might refer you to somebody in Philly that's a lot smarter than me to give you an opinion on this. So I didn't take that referral, but what I was a little perturbed about was that I did a virtual consultation with him and he took it from his car. And he basically really wasn't looking at my images, my CAT scan. And I was like, and I caught on to it because I heard his radio on. I didn't say anything to him, but I figured maybe he looked at my images before he went somewhere. And then he was on the video and then he shut the video off saying that he was having some connection problems. What was actually happening was that he was losing video because he was traveling and he was probably going home, more than likely. So I was a little annoyed about that. And I was like, well, I'm like, the good news is that he did this and the hardware's stable, thank goodness. I think that's really a good thing. That's important to me. I kind of wish he would have done this, but he's not doing it. That being said, I got one more opinion from a surgeon in New York City, and the surgeon in New York City just happened to be friends with the surgeon in Texas, but he didn't know that the surgeon in Texas saw my case. And he told me, and because I told him I saw somebody in Texas, he asked me who, and he goes, "Oh, I know him very well." He goes, "As a matter of fact, we were one of the first two to really do the first Mobi-Cs." And I was like, "Really?" And so I told him what the surgeon in Texas said, and he goes, actually, I'd agree with him. He goes, I would agree that replacing your Mobi-C with a Pro Disc would be the way to go. He goes, that would be a risk worth taking. Now the problem is he did not say it'd be a guarantee for anything. But what he said that, he looked at my images and he said, oh yeah, he goes, your core migrated. He goes, that's a failed Mobi-C. He goes, that's essentially, that's really a failed Mobi-C and that's it. And he said, I would actually replace that with a Pro Disc. And I asked him, I go, what about the Simplify? What do you think about that? He goes, well, if you're facing hypermobility problems, I wouldn't do it. You'd be better off with the Pro Disc because you'd be less hypermobile. The end plates are a little bit longer. They'd be able to push that thing back a little bit. You'd have a better time. It would cause it'd be about 25 to 33% more constrained, which is about what I'm feeling. I'm feeling I'm feeling hyper when I'm doing this, a lot of hypermobility, about 25% more hypermobile. So those are the things to consider, And then he said, but I'm more concerned about this fusion failing too. He goes, if anything, I would want to revise this fusion. And I go, but I'm not having a problem with the fusion. I go, I think that's okay. And he's like, yeah. He goes, but I'm looking at the CAT scans, and it looks like some of your nerves are still compressed, and it could be the reason why you're getting the numbness and tingling here. And I was like, maybe. He goes, honestly, he goes, if I were to do this, it would be a hybrid surgery. He would replace the fusion, and he would do the Mobi-C, basically a hybrid surgery. Good. I'm happy to hear somebody would be willing to take that approach. I was very happy with that. At least the guy's looking out for me. I would still be concerned about removing this and getting a new plate and anything else. But again, I don't know. I'm more concerned about the Mobi-C. Of course, I didn't talk to him about the C23, and we didn't really bring it up, but I think it should have been brought up. So the problem now that I'm having, he is out of network with my insurance with work. That makes a huge, huge, huge difference because out of network may not get approved on surgery. I don't mind that he's in New York City. I can hop on a train if I really, really want to suck through it and get to him. But what is concerning to me is that yes, this is now a problem, and that's it. So what am I going to do going forward? I haven't decided on anything. I'm still searching for options for surgeons very locally that will do a surgery to replace a Mobi-C with a Protus. I'd be willing to take that risk. Definitely would be willing to yeah. And if worst comes to worst, then I do the posterior approach, which is probably what would need to happen at that point if a Protus ever failed. The last surgeon that I saw in New York City did say that he'd never had a Protus basically migrate forward like that. He's never had any problems with the Protus. He said they've been very solid. So he thinks that would be a very good option for me. But again, I'm a little leery because what if this isn't my problem? What if the problem is that bone spur SC2, 3 that I thought I saw all the way? Well, you probably can't see it on this image. What if that was a problem? Or what if the problem is actually my C1 is rotated, and but I can still move it around, but it's rotated, and now it's causing me instability. So these are I don't know. So what am I going to do going forward? Still search for surgeons. Number one. In the meantime, I don't think I'm going to push for surgery in 2022. I think I'm going to try different approaches that will probably include maybe seeing some sort of special PT again to see if it can help at all. Doing some exercise stuff at home, losing some weight because I've gained way too much weight since this all started, without a doubt. Seeing if that has any indication or help on things, and then going from there. And then hopefully maybe by the time 2023 rolls around, I have a surgeon in my back pocket that I can come back and say, hey, dude, let's go ahead and proceed with the surgery early on in the year, get this out of the way so this way I can heal the rest of the year and then move on with life from there. So yeah, there you have it. There's my update. Sorry, it was longer than I anticipated. Again, if you are a spine surgeon, if you are an orthopedic surgeon, a neurosurgeon, even a chiropractor or a nucca, or especially a nucca chiropractor, and you've looked at my images, you've listened to my case, please comment on anything. Obviously there's a lot going on, but I hope this is informative for all of you guys, especially for those that are having the failed Mobi-Cs and failed fusions, that you can understand what's actually happening and what needs to get done. Like I said, I think the fusion is okay-ish. I don't think I'm having a major issue. I think the Mobi-C is causing me more of a problem. But again, I don't know. That's always my big concern about, is this truly the problem, or is my problem something else that even if I get this done, what's going to happen? So there we go. So leave a comment in the comment section. Subscribe to my channel if you want to get updates on this. Hit that like button for my video. And sorry for killing a lot of time. It was a lot of time, actually, a lot more than I anticipated. But I need to get the update out there. Hopefully, I'll be able to tell you guys more in 2023. Peace out, everybody. Later. Enjoy your fall. Enjoy your winter. and I'll see you guys again probably in the next few months. Later, all.